Hello, good evening, and welcome to BYJU'S IAS. Now, yesterday we completed a host of topics when it comes to revision aspect of environment and ecology. Now today we are going to build upon those concepts. And rather, we are going to broaden our horizon when it comes to the broad coverage of what we mean by biodiversity, as well as certain species which have remained in news during these past years. Also, we shall consider certain important reports such as India's State of Forest Report, whereby we will aim to understand what are the different kinds of forests and how it is that India's forest cover is changing every 2 years. So, with that, we shall get an idea regarding what sort of questions can be framed from this, and we shall be taking pretty much 2 to 3 type of questions from each of the topic so that we get a broader understanding, and also the concept part of it deepens while ensuring that we are able to interrelate and interconnect everything to the different concepts, be it geography, be it economical terms, or be it the sociological aspect of environment and ecology. Okay? So, without further ado, let us begin and let us start by the first topic, that is status of tigers in India. Now, tigers are something which have always, and for past decade particularly, they have been in news for their declining numbers. But then, this status of this report actually told us something very different. This report gave us an idea that in India, population of tigers is increasing day by day, and it is increasing quite drastically in certain parts of the country. So what we shall be doing here is, we shall be analyzing that where is it that tiger population is increasing, what are the methods by which we end up measuring the tiger population. Because mind you, UPSC had asked even this question previously regarding the method that can be used to calculate the number of tigers present in the wildlife. So after that, we shall be looking into certain key concepts such as what are corridors, especially tiger and wildlife corridors. Also, we shall be looking into what is it when we say that tigers need to be conserved. Why is it so important after all to conserve the tigers? And what is the overall implication of conservation of tigers when it comes to the larger bioweb or when it comes to the larger ecological environment? Okay? So, if we look at the map of the country, we see that overall, mostly, the population of tigers have increased considerably. And barring a few states which you can see marked as red, rest of the states, they have noted an increase in tiger numbers. So what is important from this? From this, what can be important from the prelims perspective is the fact that Madhya Pradesh with 526 tigers is the one state having the largest number of tigers, right ahead of Karnataka, which has just 2 tigers less. So these are the major states where the population has increased considerably. If you see the previous numbers, then in Madhya Pradesh it has increased from 300 to roughly around 526. So that is more than 50% increase which has been witnessed here. But then there are certain states out there which have been marked in red. So in these states, the actual tiger numbers have come down considerably. So why is it that while the tiger numbers have been increasing all over the country, why is it that in certain states it has shown a declining trend? So the prime reason, if you look at the states that are there, so the prime reason for decreasing numbers of tigers is clearance of more number of or larger land area for mining purposes. So as the land area is being cleared and as the forested lands are being cleared for mining purposes, that leaves lesser amount or lesser area as a habitat for the tiger population. And mind you, tigers are those species, those animals in which one adult male tiger can need roughly around 100 kilometers square of an area for his own territory. So that is how important habitat is for tiger population. And when the habitat is being destroyed for mining purposes, then as we can see that the tiger population has reduced drastically. Not only here, even in Goa, you will find that the tiger population has reduced. Goa is also important for mining activities. Which is the mineral which is mined mostly in case of Goa? That is, in Goa, you generally take care of mining of iron ore. Even though the production has been stopped after subsequent Supreme Court rulings, but still, there are large areas which are being cleared illegally. So that is why in these areas, there's a decline. And there were 3 particular regions and 3 particular tiger reserves where the number was actually 0. Which were those? So those were Buxa in West Bengal, Palamu in Jharkhand, as well as in Dampa Reserve in Manipur. So in all these areas, in these 3 areas particularly, the tiger population that was recorded was very close to 0, and there were no tiger recordings or camera traps which were measured thereby. So then we come to the aspect of various technologies which are used for measurement of population of tigers. Mind you, what sort of question can you expect from this? From this area, you can actually expect a question which can ask you that M stripes, cat rat, all these terms, they relate to what? It can be as blank as that. But if you do not know what they are, then you might end up shooting in the dark anyways. So let us know what these important parameters are and how is it that we measure tiger population with these technologies. So first is M stripes. So M stripes is a new software-based counting methodology which has been inculcated by NTCA or National Tiger Conservation Authority. And thereby it is one of those methods where double counting of tiger population has greatly reduced. And UPSC couple of years back had asked a question regarding M stripes. So then, the next technology that is used is cat rat. What is cat rat and what is the benefit of cat rat? So basically, under this technology, you get an advantage that whatever photos are taken, and these photographs are taken with the help of cameras which are tied or which are placed at tree heights or at different places. So under this technology, any photograph which is taken immediately is geotagged and is also organized depending upon the species which has been captured. So thereby again, what does this do? This helps again prevent double counting. Double counting is a terminology that I have been using time and time again. So what is this double counting about? And why is everybody worried about double counting of tiger population? So basically, the cameras that are used to measure and the cameras which are used to detect the tiger movements, they give us the idea about what is the population of tigers. It is not like a human census where somebody will come knocking on your door and will ask how many members are there in your household. No. Here we get the idea about the numbers by the different camera traps which are set all across the forested area. So under such circumstances, the chances are very high that the same camera might end up capturing the same tiger multiple times. So in that case, there can be a falsified data, or there can be a false perception that the number of tiger population or the tiger population in itself is increasing, whereas the reality might be completely different. So that is why you have numerous technologies which are being used on an everyday basis so that this double counting does not take place. And double counting here refers to capturing the same animal or counting the same animal multiple times, which gives us a falsified data regarding the population of that species. Then, after that, we have another important method, that is cytochrome B marker. What is this? So, under this technique or technology, what is done is, and especially these technology or this kind of technology is used in those areas where the tiger population is very, very less. And it is very difficult to actually spot a tiger via the medium or with the help of a camera. So in these situations or in these circumstances, what is done is the droppings or scat of tigers, right? Their excreta, that is actually measured. And from there, we are able to extract genomic DNA. And with the help of this genomic DNA, the forest rangers and the different foresters, they can get an idea about if it is the same tiger which is roaming around the forest, or are there multiple species, or are there multiple number of tigers who are present in this forested area. So this again, in a way, prevents what? It prevents double counting while giving us an authentic information regarding the number of tigers. Other than that, there is also an entropical measurement which is done in those areas where logistical methods are not very easily available and where the forest areas are quite remote, like in the case of northeastern states. You will particularly find this occurrence happening again and again. So thereby, remember what M stripes is, what is the purpose of cat-rat, and also remember what is cytochrome B. And in a way, cat-rat is actually most important this year because numerous questions had been raised on the number of tigers which were reported. And the government came clean saying that, see, this is the technology that we used, and this technology is foolproof and meets the global standards. So cat-rat is a technology which ensures geotagging, where the photograph was actually taken, and also it organizes the photographs accordingly. So that is a significant advantage given to those people who have this unenviable job of counting the number of tigers in the forest. Okay? Now, after this, we move on to few of the conservation efforts of tigers in India. Because as we discussed yesterday, just looking at a particular report is not important. We have to try and link to as many different aspects from the same particular topic. Because if tiger population is in news, does not mean UPSC is going to ask you how many number of tigers are there in Karnataka and how many number of tigers are there in Madhya Pradesh. No. It can ask you related to tigers or a question related to tigers, but the question can be completely different. So as candidates for civil services, our job should be to cover all the bases equally so that any unexpected type of question, if it is thrown at us, we are able to tackle it very beautifully and very comfortably. So when you come to conservation efforts of India, or which have been used and propagated in India, then one of that is Project Tiger. Project Tiger rather was one of the pioneering conservation programs launched all over the world. And in fact, India, remember, at this stage in 1973 was not in such a developed status whereby now it could start worrying about its wildlife, let alone its starving population. So that is why it becomes much more important, because India had launched Project Tiger such early and immediately, so soon after independence. That shows that we were very, very conscious that our animal, or rather national animal, is facing a threat and needs to be conserved. This Project Tiger has met with considerable amount of success, but then over a period of certain number of decades which have elapsed, we have also come across certain drawbacks or lacuna in the whole project. And thereby we have made certain amendments, and whereby we have actually improvised how we implement this Project Tiger. How do we involve the local communities in the conservation process, which makes the conservation much more inclusive and much more interest-based, where everybody is interested in only conserving the tiger population. Then, another important conservation methodology, not methodology per se, but rather a momentous occasion when it comes to conservation of tiger, was the establishment of National Tiger Conservation Authority. Now, this authority is a statutory body. First of all, whenever you are coming across any kind of body, any kind of organization which has been formed, and if you are reading it, be it in economics, be it in polity or any other subject, one thing you have to keep in mind is, and the first thing you have to catch is, whether it is a statutory body, whether it is a constitutional body, whether it is simply a legal or a society, or what sort of body or organization it is. So, National Tiger Conservation Authority is a statutory body. It comes under the ambit, or it comes under the supervisory direction of Ministry of Environment and Forest and Climate Change. So, the Environment Minister is the sitting chairman of this authority. And this authority is the one which takes care of different programs which are being run across the country for the conservation of the big cats that are there. So that is why National Tiger Conservation Authority, what it can do, what it does, what sort of body it is, all of this is very important. And one other factor is important here as well, and that is, under which provision was this body actually established. So this body was established under Wildlife Act 1972. So be very clear regarding this, because you can face a question, and we'll see what sort of questions can confuse you regarding what sort of act was utilized in order to establish the authority and the functions of this authority that is there. Okay? Now, after looking at the conservation efforts in India, if you take a look at the global spectrum, then lately, for the past couple of decades, even the globally, there has been a concerted or a unified effort in order to save the tiger population. So, along with that, you will see that first is Global Tiger Initiative. Global Tiger Initiative is basically what was launched in 2008 as an alliance of different governments, different civil societies, different NGOs, all of them. They came together, and thereby it was the Global Tiger Initiative which was launched. And lately, in 2013, snow leopards were also included under this conservation project. So remember this, in 2013, snow leopard was also included under this conservation program or under this conservation project. And it is one of the most encompassing initiative, including almost all the different stakeholders when it comes to conservation efforts. Be it NGOs, civil society, private sector, everyone, and also certain governments. They also were involved in this initiative. And then, After that, you had the St. Petersburg Tiger Summit in Russia way back in 2010. And here, all the 13 tiger range countries that are there, all the 13 tiger range countries that are there, that are including all the countries in Southeast Asia where they are present in maximum amount, including Laos, Cambodia, Myanmar, India, Bhutan, all of them. They were participants of this, and thereby a goal was set in order to double the tiger population by the year 2022. That was the aim of which was set during this summit. Now, after this, you also had the Global Tiger Forum. Global Tiger Forum is also very important. Now, you might think all of these are important, so what is the difference between them? So the reality is, Global Tiger Forum is the only intergovernmental organization which is actually under the initiative to save and to take various policy measures in order to protect the tiger population in the wild. When we are talking about protecting tiger population in the wild, that includes a host of measures. Protecting the tiger's habitat, protecting its prey or what it eats, also ensuring that there are enough number of tiger corridors which are present all over the different areas where tigers are present. So this Global Tiger Forum was actually formed as a result of different tiger range countries convening a meeting in India in way back in 2013. And there it was decided that there needs to be a global architecture to protect these wild cats. And that is when you had the Global Tiger Forum. And then you have this very strange name, or rather alphabetical order, that is TX2. What does this say? This means that there is an aim to double the tiger population. So T into 2 or TX2 as you refer it, this is nothing but an overarching aim again to double the tiger population. While the world at large is still struggling with the declining numbers, India has shown the way with increase in tiger population in the recent report that has come out. Now, the question, with reference to National Tiger Conservation Authority, which of the following statements is or are correct? First, it is a statutory body, true, under the Environment Protection Act of 1986. That's why I said, be very careful that what act was utilized to open or establish this body. So, it was established under the Wildlife Act 1972. So, hence, the first option is incorrect. Then, the second option, it fosters accountability of the center state to manage tiger reserves by providing a basis for MOU with states within our federal structure. So this is regarding the functioning of it. So whenever you come across such statements which seem kind of like vague, you do not know whether it is true or not. So in that point of time, one thing is for sure, that you would not have come across this statement in general parlance or while you were revising. So how do we attempt such a question, and how do we tackle such a statement? So in these situations, always apply your own logic and whatever you have read in polity. That can this be possible, or is this something which is way out of order? So here, it is about accountability of center state and within our federal structure. Now, Indian polity, for its most part, I am saying for its most part, is actually a bulwark of federal structure. So that is why this statement logically should be correct and is rather correct. So that is how you can approach such unexpected statements, because let us be very clear. As I reiterated yesterday as well, regardless of how many books, countless number of materials you come across, UPSC is known to spring a surprise for the candidates. So UPSC will spring certain surprises in the form of certain statements that maybe you would not have come across. So rather than panicking at the moment that where was this, why did not I read this, be calm and analyze whether it can be true or if it should be false. Now look at the third statement. It addresses the livelihood interests of local people in areas surrounding tiger reserves. Again, maybe you know it, maybe you don't know it. But in this case, you have two options. First of all, look at the different options that are available to you. So in the options that are available, you will find option 1 is present in 3 different options. Right? And we know that option 1 is incorrect because of Environment Protection Act. So immediately you will be able to mark out that 2 and 3 is the correct answer. That is the easier method. But suppose the options are a bit more dicey. Then again look at the logic of the statement. That should a body which has been established for tiger conservation, should they not take care of the livelihood of people who are living nearby? Because if they do not take care of the livelihood of people living nearby, what will those people do? Those people might be tempted to resort to poaching and hunting activities, which will be very detrimental to tiger population. So that is what makes this statement correct. That livelihood has to be ensured. And people have to be made a stakeholder when it comes to conservation of tiger population across the world. So that gives us an answer of this question. Okay? Next, after that, we come to certain key concepts, that is, importance of tiger corridors. So what are these corridors? So if you take a look and a comfortable look at the wildlife map of India, you will see that wildlife, they are often, and different animals, they are often limited to certain pockets of the country, certain forested areas of the country. So those kind of animals like tigers, as I said, an adult male tiger can actually require a space of close to around 100 kilometers square of area for that individual self, in order to take care of his dietary habits, of his food requirements and all of those. So there needs to be a large area which has to be available for sheer roaming of these animals, so that these animals could roam freely from one area to another. So just like in English, normal English parlance, we use the term corridor, here again the meaning is one and the same. It is nothing but a connectivity which is established between two sink habitat regions or between two habitat zones. Okay? So this corridor which is established, what is this corridor made up of? This is nothing but a forested patch which is left undisturbed so that the animal and the wildlife can move freely through this area. So that is what the purpose of corridors is. Because let me tell you what happens otherwise, in case there is no established corridor. So you have individual and isolated habitats for different tigers. Now, in each of these habitats, there will come a moment when the tiger population will be too large for that habitat. Or maybe the food that is available in these habitats, in either one of them, that might fall short. So in such cases, what do these wildcats do? They start roaming around in search of food. And when they start roaming around and when they come out of their habitats, it is in these conditions that we witness the sad incident of man-animal conflict, whereby the tigers, or in certain cases leopards, they venture out into normal urban or rural spaces, which might lead to a sad casualty or two, but also that tiger being killed at the hand of the humans. So that is why there is need to establish a corridor-like structure in order to connect these different habitats so that they are able to move very freely. In fact, there is a very interesting anecdotal story that was recently uncovered when a tiger was fitted with GPS tracker. And there it was observed for the first time. This was a tiger which was present in Western Ghats in the state of Maharashtra. And there it was actually witnessed for the first time of the distance, huge distances that an individual tiger covers during a very short span of period. That male tiger, whose movement was being tracked and was watched very closely, that tiger covered a distance of close to 3,000 kilometers within that same span of area, searching for a perfect habitat for himself. Think about it. 3,000 kilometers is roughly the whole length of the country from north to south and is more than the breadth of the country from east to west. So that is how much distance an adult male tiger can cover in search for his perfect habitat. Now, when it comes to India, and when it is referred to the conservation programs in India, we generally have 4 special regions which are catered to when it comes to establishing of corridors. What are those special regions and 4 classification of regions? One is your Shivalik Gangetic belt. That is along the foothills of Shivalik, where you have the Tarai ecosystem. The one we see in alluvial plains. You must have studied in geography that immediately after the foothills, the Tarai belt starts. And in the Tarai belt, the population of flora and fauna is very high. So there, tiger population is always going to be present. Even though now it has declined considerably, but this was the area which saw the establishment of the first tiger reserve or the first protected tiger area in the whole country. In the name of Jim Corbett. What we know as Corbett Tiger Reserve or the Corbett National Park. Then, other than this, we have the belt of Central India and Eastern Ghats. What does this area comprise of? So this area actually comprises of certain forest reserves which are present in the region of Telangana, like you have Amrabad Tiger Reserve, in the surrounding region of Chhattisgarh, like you have the Indravati Tiger Reserve, then in the central part of Madhya Pradesh, where you have Kanha Kisli Pech, and also in the case of Maharashtra, where you have the famous Tadoba Andhari Tiger Reserve. So all those tiger-rich areas or all those tiger habitats, they come under this belt. So while I'm mentioning the belt, the purpose of it is that within each of these belts, the government and the NTCA has come out with the exact number of corridors which can be established here to enable and to facilitate the movement of these tigers, so that tigers do not starve to death, so that even if food is not available in their habitat, they can actually venture out. After all, these are wild animals. These are not the animals who should be kept and restricted in a zoo. Then after that, we have two another zones. One is obviously the Western Ghats, and the other is the Northeast India or the Northeast Belt. So these are the four major belts which are being worked upon in order to facilitate the tiger movement and in order to establish more number of tiger corridors. Corridors, mind you, again recapping in a very quick sentence, they are essential for the conservation of not only the habitat of a particular fauna, but also the living standard and also ensuring the genetic diversity in that particular faunal species. Because in case there are corridors present, then the species of one particular habitat zone can go and intermingle with the species of other particular habitat zone, thereby enriching the genetic pool of that species and ensuring that the population remains very sustainable. Okay? Then, after that, we come to the concept of tigers as umbrella species. So, what do we mean when we say umbrella species? So these are those particular species, or this is a name given to those particular species. Just like what is the purpose of umbrella in a normal day-to-day parlance? Umbrella is an overarching cover that is present. So just like that, tigers are considered umbrella species because if you end up conserving the tigers in the wild, not only will you protect that particular animal, but also you will end up protecting host of other wildlife and biodiversity which is present in that region. Otherwise, what happens if the top predator, if in case the top predator is eliminated, then the wildlife and the balance of wildlife becomes very haphazard and becomes very disturbed. Because then there is no particular natural limiting method in order to control the population of different species, like you have deer, like in certain cases you have small rabbits that are there. So whatever serves as the food for these tigers, their population remains and goes completely unchecked if the tiger population is damaged. So that is why tigers are referred to as umbrella species. And the case in point can be taken in this case of Royal Bengal tiger. Why am I referring to Royal Bengal tiger? After all, overall if you see, the whole of India's tiger population is of the same genus. Then what is Royal Bengal tiger here referred to? Here I am referring to Royal Bengal tiger in its own natural habitat, that is the Sundarbans. Now, Sundarbans, they are actually the largest delta which is present, riverine delta which is present across the world. Now, riverine delta, they are very fertile. So, there is lots and lots of growth of different types of flora, that is different types of plants. And when there is lots and lots of plants which are present in a region, that automatically will bring different animals. So the balance of the whole Sundarban area and the Sundarban delta, in that case the top predator is tiger. If the tiger population declines in the Sundarban, then the biodiversity and the ecological balance of this critical area, that lays haywire, or that simply goes in a haphazard manner. So that is why it is referred to as an umbrella species. So these two concepts are important because you can expect individual questions from this, or you can expect easily a multiple statement type question on this. So at least be aware of what the concept is or what this is actually talking about. Okay? Then, with reference to Global Tiger Forum, which of the following statements are correct? First statement is, it is the only intergovernmental body campaigning to save tigers worldwide. So the key word here to note is intergovernmental body. That is a body including representatives of different governments where tigers are present. So this is correct because it was established after the meeting which was concluded in New Delhi in when? In 2013. It was after that that you had the establishment of Global Tiger Forum. Then it works under the supervision of UNEP or United Nations Environment Program. This statement is actually incorrect because it is or it works under its own purview and it is working in order to ensure that the tiger population is maintained, and it has got not much to do with UNEP other than coordinating certain functions and coordinating certain campaign messaging activities. Other than that, it has not got to do much with UNEP. Then it initiated the Global Tiger Recovery Program. Again, an incorrect statement because Global Tiger Forum did not launch this. This was launched much earlier. So in this case, the answer shall be A, that is one only. Okay? Then consider the following statements regarding wildlife corridors. So the first is they connect two sink habitats of a particular species. What did we say? That they connect two particular habitats. Here only one new word that you will find is sink, which basically refers to their natural base habitat. So this is a statement which is correct. Then they can cause an increase in the instance of human-animal conflict. Will this happen? No, because wildlife corridors are established or are maintained precisely to stop this. So this will be incorrect. Then they help in preventing the negative effects of inbreeding among species, whereby they keep on breeding amongst the same genes that are present. So when you have wildlife corridors, the tigers are free to roam into different habitats, intermingle with different animals, intermingle with tigers having different genes, and thereby it will actually prevent the negative effects of inbreeding. So again, this is correct. So the answer will be C, that is 1 and 3 only. Okay? Then with reference to the fourth cycle of All India Tiger Estimation 2018, consider the following statements. First, the percentage rise in tigers as recorded is the highest between two consecutive cycles that are there. So yes, this is correct. It is rather a very factual statement that is there. Then Karnataka recorded the highest number of tigers. We know it was the state of Madhya Pradesh. Karnataka had almost an equal number of tigers, just 2 less in number. So this is an incorrect statement. Then there has been an overall increase observed across all the states in the country. This statement again is incorrect. Why? Because there are states along the eastern part of the country which do not have or which have not recorded an increase in tiger population. So again the answer shall be A, or that is 1 only. Okay? Then after that we come to the next topic, that is India's State of Forest Report. Now, when it comes to the state of forest cover, what is the actual extent of it? So ideally, it is said that any particular country should have 1/3 of its area under forest cover. So that is why every 2 years, when this report actually comes out, it is very keenly observed, so as to see what is the status of forest report or what is the status of forest cover in our country. So the few things and the initial things that we need to note down here is that this is biennial. It is not annual. It comes out every 2 years, that is there. And it is published by Forest Survey of India. So keep that in mind as well, because there can be options which shall confuse you, that who comes out with the forest report or who comes out with the India State of Forest report, so on and so forth. So be very clear that Forest Survey of India launches or releases this report every 2 years. And it has been started in 1987 itself, and 16 different reports have actually come out. Now, before analyzing the report and the details of it, one thing that you need to understand is the classification of forest. How is it that forests are actually classified into dense, very dense, moderate, and so on? So the forest cover is basically classified on the basis of canopy cover. What do we mean by canopy cover? First of all, what do we mean by canopy itself? So canopy, when it comes to a tree or any tree that is there, if you look at any tree, then the top portion of the tree shall be much wider than the bottom portion. So that enlarged top portion is what gives you an idea about canopy cover. So that is how you have the distinguishing of forest being done depending upon the canopy cover which is present. So if you will see that very dense forests are those in which canopy cover is greater than or equal to 70%. Right? Then you have moderately dense forests which are in between 40 to 70% of canopy cover. Now, again, you might face a doubt here that what is the 70% of canopy cover? What do we mean when we talk about 40 to 70% of canopy cover? So this is with regards to the land area. That if you compare the land area, in that land area, looking from the top view, what is the actual canopy cover percentage? Is it more than 70% of the land area? Is it between 40% to 70%? Is it between 10% and 40%, which makes it an open forest? Or is it less than that? So that is how we end up classifying the forest as very dense, moderately dense, open forest, and the scrub forest which are present in the drier regions of the country. So keep in mind what is canopy cover. Also keep in mind that what is the percentage of canopy cover which is required for a very dense forest or a moderately dense forest that is there. And in order to remember this, in order to remember the order of it, always remember scrubs that are there. Scrubs are very haphazardly spread or very widely spread trees or plants that you will find which do not have much density. Why? Because they are specific phenomena which is observed in the case of drier areas of the country, where the total annual rainfall is in the range of around 50 to 70 centimeter. So in those areas of the country, you will find the scrub cover. And where are these areas located? So if you know the rainfall pattern, that is how you can actually interlink it. So here again comes an opportunity for you to interrelate and correlate it with what you have studied under geography in Indian climate. So if you know that 50 to 70 centimeter of rainfall is actually being observed in certain regions of Western Madhya Pradesh, then Rajasthan, parts of Gujarat, parts of Maharashtra which lies on the other side of the Western Ghats or the rain shadow area of the Western Ghats, easily you can decipher which are the areas where what kind of forest cover will be present, and you shall never get confused in this. Scrubs for that matter, open forest for that matter, you'll never find it in northeastern regions, because northeastern regions anyways receive rainfall very close to 150 to 200 centimeters every year. So that is how you can understand the different forest cover and you can get an idea about where such kind of forest covers are found. But then the important factor here to note is, first of all, if you look at the map of the country, then if you look at the distribution pattern of forests that are there, then the ideal convicts when it comes to increased forest locations, the ideal areas or the ideal suspects are the ones which receive maximum amount of rainfall. So, the Western Ghats, why? Because the southwest monsoon first of all strikes the Western Ghats, bringing a rainfall in excess of around 200 centimeter per year, leading to evergreen, semi-evergreen kind of forests in that area. Then you have the parts of central India. Now remember, under tiger reserves as well and under the tiger belts, we covered this area. So this area is densely forested. So where does this area receive rainfall from? Again, a correlated question which can be framed from geography as well. That is, where does and by which part of monsoon does this part of central India receive rainfall from? So this area receives rainfall due to the presence of Rift Valley through which Narmada and river Tapi flows, through which the southwestern monsoon or the Arabian Sea branch does enter into the region which we refer to as the Amarkantak Hills. Now, as I have mentioned here Amarkantak Hills, so let us also mention some trivia about Amarkantak Hills, again important from prelims perspective. These are the hills in our country which exhibit a very peculiar and a very certain kind of drainage pattern that is there, whereby from the same region you have rivers originating in different directions. It is these Amarkantak Hills which are a source for important rivers like you have Narmada, which flows to the west, and you have the river Son, which then goes on to join river Ganga very close to Patna. So these two rivers, they end up originating from these Amarkantak Hills. So thereby Amarkantak Hills is important for what? For a radial drainage pattern. Okay? Radial drainage pattern. So again, something that is very, very important from prelims perspective. UPSC always favors to ask question regarding these drainage systems and regarding these drainage patterns. So you can expect a question from this area as well. Okay? Then, after that, we move on to a certain concept which oftentimes confuses us all. That in the report that if you see, in the report itself, there is a separate column mentioning forest cover. And also there is a separate column mentioning tree cover. So, what is this forest cover and what is this tree cover? After all, forests are nothing but accumulation of trees. So here comes the slight difference between them. And that is when measured over an area, whereas the area is 1 hectare. Mind you, in the question you can be confused, and in the question the statement will very easily and nonchalantly, in a way which you will not even notice, it can mention in the question of area of 10 hectares. No, observable area of 1 hectare when it is present, in that observable area of 1 hectare, if the canopy cover is around 10% or more, right? Canopy density of 10% and more, then you refer to it as forest cover, and elsewise you refer to it as tree cover. So let me cite you an example of this. Suppose you are living in any particular city. Let's consider Bangalore as an example. So Bangalore is very green. So in different areas when you venture out, you will see different pockets of trees that are there. And they actually constitute of considerable amount of area. So can those be considered as forests as well? Suppose you go to a park and in that park again you see many different types of trees that are there. So can we consider that also as a forest? No. So here comes the importance of this land area, that is 1 hectare. So minimum area under consideration should be 1 hectare. If the trees are occupying a space less than 1 hectare, no matter how dense they may be, they will not be considered as a forest cover. They will only be considered as an independent tree cover that is there. And if it is actually covering an area more than 1 hectare, then in that case, the canopy density of more than or equal to 10% is needed for that particular area to be referred to as a forest cover, so to say. Okay? So be very clear regarding what is forest cover and what is tree cover. Okay? Then, this is the actual report, if you will see, and as I mentioned, you have the total forest cover in one row and again you have the tree cover in another row. So total combined tree cover and the forest cover is close to 24.5%. Okay, so this is a number you need to know, 24.56%. When I say this is a number you need to know, you do not need to know the exact 5 decimal places that are there. No, you just need to know the whereabouts. Because in the question, you might face a number, let's say 30% or let's say 20%. So you need to know in what area is the total number actually at. UPSC generally till now has not gone into the exact decimal places. That is mostly observed in state PSC exams, but then you need to know roughly the whereabouts of it. And also you will need to know what is that non-forested area that is there. That is close to 75 to 76% of the land is considered as the non-forested area. Okay, so keep these things in mind. Keep the thing in mind that this is close to 24.5%, which is less than the ideal amount which the government of India also has set for itself as a target and globally is considered as a best practice, that is close to 33%. But then we are slowly and steadily closing that or nearing that figure, so remember that figure. Okay? Then, after that, certain key findings that you need to notice. That is, which is the state which has the maximum area under forest cover. So thereby, mind you that area-wise forest cover is going to be very different than what we refer to as percentage-wise area or forest cover that is there. That is, the state which has the largest area under forest is Madhya Pradesh, and after that you have Arunachal Pradesh. Maximum area under forest cover. That is what I am reiterating time and again so that you remember this, maximum area, not maximum percentage. I'll tell you the difference between the two as well, don't worry. But then you also need to know that the top 3 states showing increase in forest cover, where the forest cover has increased considerably, and that is Karnataka, Andhra Pradesh and Kerala, the 3 southern states that are. So in these states, you will see there has been a notable and a considerable increase in the forest cover. Okay? Now, when it comes to percentage of the state area under forest, then all the northeastern states, they occupy the prime position. So let me tell you what is the difference between the percentage under forest cover and the area under forest cover. So We'll consider just an ideal example. Let us suppose you have a state A, right? Let's suppose the total area of A in itself is around 100 kilometers square. Okay? Now, if I end up saying that out of this, around 90% is under forest cover. So, what is the area under forest cover? That will be close to 90 kilometers square, right? If I say that 90% of A is under forest cover, that means around an area of 90 kilometers square is under forest cover. But then, suppose there is a larger state B, and B suppose has an area of 300 kilometers square. Mind you, here forest cover is 90%. Here suppose in B I say that only 50% is under forest cover. What will be the area under forest cover in this case? It will be close to 150 kilometers square. So even though the percentage is less in that case, the total area under forest cover is more. So that is the basic concept behind percentage of area cover and rather the total area cover. So when it comes to aerial coverage, Madhya Pradesh is the largest. When it comes to percentage coverage, Mizoram is occupying the highest position, very closely followed again by Arunachal Pradesh. Okay? Then, the question regarding Indian State of Forest Report 2019, consider the following statements. First, it has been released by the Forest Survey of India. So, yes, it is true. Then, India has achieved the goal of 33% forest cover out of the total land in India. Absolutely incorrect. It is close to roughly around 24.5%. Then, Madhya Pradesh has the highest forest cover percentage-wise, not area-wise, percentage-wise. So, we have seen it is rather area-wise. So, this statement will be incorrect. Then, forest cover has declined in all northeastern states of India. So, maybe you know this, maybe you don't know this. So, if you look at it, here we have to mark out the incorrect statements. So, if you will look at it, then roughly you only have one option which does not have 4, right? And we know one is correct. So, thereby, if we eliminate one, you are left with only 2 other options. That is 3 and 4, 2, 3 and 4, right? Then we get forest cover has declined in all the northeastern states of the country, but we know that in the states of Assam as well as in the states of Tripura, in both these states, the forest cover has actually increased considerably. So, thereby, again, this statement is incorrect. So, the answer will be 2, 3, and 4. Okay? Then, after that, we come on to the mangroves. Very important from civil services perspective, be it prelims, be it mains, or be it the personality test or the interview. Why? Because mangroves again are one of those species which are very important for the coastal community in general. And in order to ensure the balance of the coastal community, mangrove population is very important. This is one kind of plant which grows or thrives very easily in the salty and saline waters which are present in the coastal areas. So, thereby, these types of plants, they have certain specific properties. They show certain specific or certain different kind of properties. So, amongst the properties exhibited by them, one of them is the salt secreting glands. Which are, where are these present? These are present in the different leaves. because they grow in saline water. So they end up taking lots and lots of salt content in them. And that salt is eventually disposed with the help of salt secreting glands that are there. Whereby on the leaves after and during the afternoon you will see that salt particles, they accumulate over the leaves. And then they fall down and again fresh salt particles come up over the leaves. Then another important factor which you can actually deduce from the figure here itself, that the roots of these plants oftentimes are above the surface of the water, whereby they can freely exchange air in order to ensure that they are not stifled or they are not constricted in their growth mechanism. So that is again a property of these plants. Then the stems of these plants, they also have a very interesting property, whereby the stems also ensure that there is an interaction with the air around it, and whereby water and air can be exchanged between the stem and the outer air or the outer environment. Now that again is with the prime purpose to ensure that the plant grows despite the fact that its roots are submerged in water. And as you can guess, that these mangroves, since they form an ecotone or they grow in an ecotone, whereby two different ecosystems meet. So thereby the biodiversity present in that zone is going to be, or the biodiversity supported by these mangroves, that will be very high. So what is an ecotone? Ecotone is basically the transition area that you have between two different types of ecosystems. Right? In case of mangroves, you have the aquatic ecosystem, you have the terrestrial ecosystem. So in between those, the species which grow in this are said to be growing in an ecotone. When it comes to the population aspect, population of an ecotone is always going to be more than the population of two individual ecosystems that are there. Because here you will find species which are both of, or which have the characteristic of both these ecosystems. So that is why in ecotone there is a considerable presence of species diversity. What are other kinds of ecotones that are there? So you have, in case of mangrove, you have terrestrial and aquatic. In certain other cases, you have forest and grassland which is present. In certain other cases, you have desert and scrubs which are present. So wherever there is a transition of ecosystem taking place, that shall form an ecotone. Ecotone is also an important concept from ecosystem point of view, where you can expect a question regarding whether the species diversity will be more or will be less in an ecotone. Now, other than that, mangroves, they also have another important utility, and that is they also help us in disaster management or disaster control. How? Basically, we know that whenever there is an underwater earthquake which happens under the sea surface, it can basically have a potential to generate large tsunamis. Mangroves, they serve as a natural barrier when it comes to these waves, and they very ably and aptly are able to protect the interior areas or the hinterland as it is called. So even during the previous tsunami which struck the eastern coast of India, those areas which were covered or guarded by the mangrove population, they were prevented from the loss of life and property to the scale which was witnessed in other areas. Recently, there was this tropical cyclone Amphan, which hit the coastlines of West Bengal and also went into Bangladesh. There also, those areas which had mangrove cover, they faced a considerable lesser amount of wrath when it came to the effect of the cyclone as such. So mangrove, mind you, is very important in different perspectives, in different ways. When it comes to framing questions, you can expect different variety of questions to be framed from this. Okay? Then, the presence of mangroves across India, if you have to look at this, then again, this is something which was released under the same India State of Forest report. It is the part of the same report. So, what you have to notice here is which is the state which has the largest chunk of the pie and the second largest chunk of the pie that is there. So, mangrove population is maximum in the case of West Bengal. Where is it present in West Bengal? It is present in the region of Sundarbans. In fact, Sundarbans, they derive their name from a kind of tree, that is the Sundari tree. Again, a kind of mangrove which grows in that area. And thereby from Sundari tree, the name was generated, that is Sundarbans, or a forest inclusive of different Sundari trees. Okay? So, for the exam perspective, remember the largest area and the second largest coverage, that is Gujarat. Gujarat has the second largest coverage, whereas West Bengal has the largest coverage when it comes to mangrove population. Okay? Then, look at the question. This is a rather long question that is there. So, mangroves, they form a vital coastal ecosystem. In this context, which of the following features are associated with it? So first, they help in filtering contaminants in the water except in the case of heavy metal contaminants. So here, mangroves, they end up filtering all type of contaminants because the root structure is so spread out under the water that when the tides bring in any sort of contaminant, that is trapped by the roots and is sent to the ground sink or the ground reservoir. So that is why it sort of purifies the water as well. Regardless of the type of contaminants, mangroves play a significant role in purifying that. So here, except in the case of heavy metal contaminants, this is wrong because they will help in filtering out the heavy contaminants as well. Okay? Then, they have salt secreting glands in their leaves which help them cope up with the saline environment. Again, correct. Then, due to the presence of high density of roots, the ecosystem is unable to support fish and other organisms which need space to breed. This is an incorrect statement because they support larger variety of species and larger different types of biodiversity within themselves. Then you have their roots are unable to filter out salt from the water, as a result of which the role of eliminating salt is left only to the leaves. Again an incorrect statement because in the case of mangroves, each and every part of that tree is made or has adapted suitably to grow in that salty or saline environment and cope up with it. It is not a job which is restricted only to the leaves. No. So again, that is incorrect. Then, these plants have lenticellated barks. What do we mean by lenticellated barks? Whereby the barks, they have different types of lenticels along with them through which air and water or air and water vapor can easily be exchanged. Right? So that is what you mean, or that is what is referred by lenticellated barks. So this is correct, and hence you have C, that is 2 and 5 are correct. Okay? Then, with regards to or with reference to forests and increasing the forest cover, there has been a concerted effort which has been made by the central government as well as all the different state governments to increase the forest cover in our country and take it close to 33%, which is the ideal number. Now, in such a condition, basically the Kerala government, it came out with a sort of program whereby it tried to encourage the growth of forest or planting of trees, forest trees, in different schools, in different and around different government buildings, so that overall, if not the forest cover, at least the tree cover will increase. And wherever there is an open space available in those areas, just like what you do in the case of plantation agriculture, large number of trees are being planted so that the total forest cover also increases. That is why you see Kerala along with Karnataka and Andhra Pradesh were the states in which the forest cover actually witnessed an increase. So the style or this method of promoting growth of forest trees in the method of plantation crops, that is what is referred to as Miyawaki style after the Japanese botanist, that is Akira Miyawaki. So Miyawaki style has been in news recently. So again, it makes it important that you can actually expect a definite type of question regarding what do we mean by Miyawaki style. So you need to know this is something which is related with afforestation program or increasing the forest cover present in any particular area. And how it is sought to be done? With the help of public participation. Public participation is one of the most important cogwheels or one of the most important determinants when it comes to Miyawaki style. Okay? So keep that in mind, and this is a kind of question you can easily expect. That is, Miyawaki method recently seen in news is related to. If you have not read this, then you will end up guessing anything and fetching yourself or rewarding yourself with a negative marks. Don't reach that level. So Miyawaki is actually related to the afforestation program that is there. Okay? After that, we come to a concept which is very keenly observed in most of the Indian cities, especially during the summer season. And more importantly than that, we come to a concept which is one of the favorite areas of UPSC. That is the urban heat islands. What are these? How are these generated? And what are their properties? Let us quickly understand what are urban heat islands. So as the figure here depicts, there you can see that wherever there is an urban stretch or construction which is there, the temperature of that area is going to be high. Overall average temperature of that area is going to be high. Why is that? That is because of a factor you must have studied, that is albedo. What is albedo? When the light falls on any surface, the amount of light that is reflected or the amount of light that is absorbed, that is what determines whether an area will get heated up or will remain cool. For example, if you take the case of ice or snow cover, as we discussed, remember in the case of yesterday, we were discussing how blood red snow in Antarctica further fuels the heating of the snow. So when you have normal white ice, in that case, ice ends up reflecting close to around 85 to 90% of the light. That is why ice remains cool. But in case you have a blacktop road or pavement, or for example, suppose you have concrete structures, as is the case in urban areas, they end up with an albedo of, or they reflect only around 10 to 20% of the light back, absorbing the rest of the light. So when they absorb the light and the heat given by the sun, what happens to that area? The temperature considerably increases. And that is what is observed in the case of urban areas, whereby in the surrounding areas, wherever there are green covers, there are grasses, there are water bodies, there you will see that some part of light is reflected. But in urban areas, we find blacktop roads, we find black pavements or darker pavements, and we find concrete structures. All of them, they absorb heat. So that is why the temperature of the urban area actually shoots up. Now, there is another reason why the temperature actually shoots up. If you will notice, then only around the urban area, notice the temperature which shoots up. So, there is another reason, and that is lack of evaporation. How is it so? And how does the lack of evaporation end up increasing the temperature of any area that is there? So, whenever evaporation occurs from any point, from any place, there is a cooling effect which incurs along with that. So, take the case of your own personal example. When you sweat a lot or when you perspire a lot, when that sweat evaporates, then you would feel a sort of cooling action on your skin. That is what is observed on a larger scale on the ground level also. So, when you actually see that there is a massive level of evaporation which is being witnessed on the ground level, the ground temperature cools down considerably. But what is witnessed in urban areas? In urban areas, it is witnessed that you have very well established channel of drains and concrete jungle that is there. So whatever rainfall that you receive, that rainwater does not go into the underground level. Rather, it simply drains off outside the city limit. Isn't it the way that we define our cities now? That immediately after rainfall, if all the water has been dispersed around the city, we consider it as a perfect architecture, don't we? But then that denies the city of evaporation. And due to that, the temperature does not cool down, but rather temperature keeps on increasing. So that is why in around urban area, if you will see, the temperature that is observed is considerably high, whereas in the surrounding regions, the temperature that is observed is comparatively much lower. So this is a concept which is referred to as urban heat island or UHI, whereby the urban area is in the form of an island structure with regards to the temperature. That is, it is isolated from the surrounding areas with regards to temperature. This is something you can observe in various cities. Suppose, let's say you are living in Delhi. Even in Delhi, right very close to the central part of Delhi, that is a central vista, that is the region around Connaught Place and where all the major areas of central Delhi are located. Very close to that, you will see there are vast expanses of forested area, what we generally refer to as ridge area in those portions. If you ever venture out in those areas, you will immediately feel that the temperature drops at least by a couple of degrees. That is because there is no longer that concrete jungle which prevails around you. So this concept of urban heat island is being mentioned time and time again because increasingly all of our cities that are there, they are adapting a Western city model whereby the whole city has to be either covered with buildings or roads or pavements or different construction activities. All of that is detrimental overall to the climatic impact and the climatic effect that you will end up witnessing if the natural process is resumed. Okay? The type of question that you can expect here. with reference to urban heat islands, which of the following statements is or are correct? So here, before going into these statements, again, I will tell you, please always pay attention on what is asked. Many of the times, we end up losing a couple of questions even though we know the answer, because we have not paid attention here if it is asking about correct or incorrect. And couple of questions are enough to put you on either side of the prelims merit list. Okay? So, in preliminary examination, always be very, very mindful of whether correct or incorrect is being asked. If you actually commit mistake here, then there is no coming back from that mistake. Okay? Then, first is, it refers to built up areas that are hotter than the nearby rural areas, which is true, that the nearby rural areas are much more cooler. And the built up area, here built up area refers to the area which has which has witnessed lots and lots of construction activities. So this is a correct statement. Then, surface urban heat island is present at all times of the day and the night. Again, which is correct. Then, atmospheric urban heat island may be small or non-existent during the day and becomes more intense or most intense at night or pre-dawn. What do you think about this statement? Will this statement be correct or incorrect? Think about it from a geographical perspective and apply your logic here. When will the land lose maximum amount of its heat? Land loses maximum amount of its heat during night time. And where does this heat go? This heat goes into the immediate troposphere in the form of what? In the form of terrestrial radiation, which is responsible for what we refer as the lapse rate, that is reduction in atmospheric temperature as you go up in altitude. So that is why the statement will also be correct, making D, that is 1, 2 and 3 as the correct answer. But again, I will reiterate, please always ensure that you're reading this correct or incorrect part very, very accurately and very, very diligently. Okay? Then, after that, we come to the concept of peatlands. So what are peatlands? So peatlands are rather very strange phenomena that you will find all across the globe in different continents. Be it the northernmost areas of Russia, or be it the Southeast Asian tropical regions, in all these areas, or be it even equatorial areas or equatorial countries like you have Democratic Republic of Congo, which has one of the last remaining equatorial rainforest in Africa. All those areas have these peatlands. So what are these peatlands? Peatlands, as you can see from the figure as well, always try to associate with the image. Imaginative recollection is much better and much accurate than what you memorize as a written text. So always try to recollect with the help of an image. So as you can see from the image, these are those areas where you have lots and lots of vegetation which are buried immediately below the surface, and the surface is occupied by water. So those areas where you will actually experience, suppose here you have different trees which have died. They are already dead. Why they are dead? Maybe because sometimes due to excessive amount of rainfall in tropical or in equatorial areas, many trees, they are unable to withstand the wind velocity and the wind magnitude as well as the amount of downpour that happens. So due to that, many trees, they end up dying. But then immediately after that, there is most of the times a layer of water or the standing water which starts coming over them. So this kind of structure that you see, or this kind of landform, kind of like a wetland that you see, this is what we refer to as peatlands. Now, why are peatlands important? Because of the fact that there are so many trees which are submerged here, plants as well, not only large trees, anything. They are submerged here. And they have not yet decomposed due to lack of oxygen that is there and due to the fact that they are cut off from outside environment. So, what do we know about these trees? They are very rich source of carbon content, or they have very high carbon content, including lots and lots of methane trapped within them. Now, methane, mind you, is a greenhouse gas. So, if due to certain circumstances, these peatlands are destroyed, what will happen? Or how do we say that a peatland is actually destroyed? When this submerged portion comes over ground, when it is exposed to the outside environment, that is when we say that a peatland is actually destroyed. When the water disappears, then this layer of trees that is exposed to the outside air. So when it is exposed to the outside air, it immediately starts getting very dry. Mind you, it gets very dry. What happens due to this? We'll look at it. But along with that, what will happen is it will end up releasing excessive amount of methane. And methane is a greenhouse gas. So if imagine excessive amount of methane is released from different areas of the globe, be it Africa, Asia, northern parts of Eurasia that is there, South America, Canada, all these portions, if they end up emitting lots and lots of methane in the air, think about the global warming potential and think about the temperature rise. That will be huge and something which we cannot even think of right now. So that will have disastrous consequence for the whole of planet. So conservation of peatlands is something which has actually captured the imagination of all the lawmakers around the world, because unless and until we do not conserve the peatlands, then we are headed for a natural disaster whereby these will be exposed to the air, and the 2°C target that we have. In case of different climate summits, we have the target, right? That the temperature rise by the next century should be around 2°C from in pre-industrial revolution time. So that 2° target will easily be flouted, will easily be surpassed. So that is why peatland conservation is very, very necessary. And in order to conserve this peatland, there is important declaration which was signed. That declaration, mind you, can be asked in itself because UPSC sometimes asks independent declarations. So for peatlands, just remember the Brazzaville Declaration. Right? Brazzaville Declaration. Remember this. So Brazzaville Declaration, which was signed in Congo, that was basically aimed at conservation and preservation of peatlands and the peatland ecosystem. Okay? Now, while I was mentioning that what will happen if the water eventually evaporates or the water drains off or disappears. So the whole of the peatland area will become very dry. And when it becomes dry, they are very vulnerable to incineration. That is, then these will act as the colloquial timber in the fire that you say. Or these will further exaggerate the incidences of forest fires that we are already witnessing all around the globe. So that is why it is very essential that these peatlands, they remain under some level of water, shallow water, which is there, whatever is there. Because that shallow water not only preserves the ecosystem underneath it, but also it supports huge variety of flora and fauna in itself, and there are lots and lots of species who utilize these areas in order to sustain and in order to thrive their population. So that is why peatlands are very important. Okay? Now, after we know what peatlands are, a very similar, if not a related concept is that of wetlands and Ramsar Convention. It was in 2014 that UPSC actually stumped everybody by asking about Ramsar Convention and the Montreux Record. So that is why since that point of time this has become very important, and again UPSC has not asked it for the previous 2 to 3 years. So again we can easily expect a question to be framed for the prelims examination either this year or next year from these wetlands and Ramsar Convention. So what are wetlands? Wetlands, again, first of all look at the figure. So wetlands are those areas where you have standing water which covers the soil, and that water can be utilized for different purposes, like you have flood control, like you have in certain cases fire control. Also, that can be utilized for drinking water purposes, that can be utilized for the growth of different trees and vegetation types that you see. So that is why wetlands are actually one of the most biologically productive areas that you will come across the terrestrial ecosystem. Biologically productive areas, which ends up supporting lots and lots of wildlife around it. Now, conservation of wetlands is very important. The concept is similar as we saw in the case of peatlands. So, conservation of wetlands has another aspect to it, or another importance to it, and that is these wetlands, they in a way drought proof an area. That is, when you have a healthy wetland in a system or in a place, those places, they are very less likely to experience drought-like conditions. So that is why they are also a sort of resistance against drought and save the local community from the hardship and the vagaries or the variance that you observe in the nature itself. Now, these wetlands that are there, the need to conserve them was felt a long time ago. And that is why in 1971 in Iran, a convention was signed which was named as Ramsar Convention. Where was it signed? Iran. Okay? So thereby, for the sole purpose of preservation of these different wetlands, you had the Ramsar Convention. And what does Ramsar Convention do? It basically lists out different wetlands across the globe that is there, so that proper steps can be taken for their conservation and for their preservation, along with increasing awareness all across the world for the conservation of these wetlands. Okay? So that is what Ramsar Convention is about. Then you have the Montreux Record. What is Montreux Record? Montreux Record is a list of those wetlands which need urgent attention and which need specific amount of preservation as well. So these are again related to wetlands, and they require consistent monitoring and consistent conservation and preservation methodologies and care to be taken. So, as far as India is concerned, you have two areas which are listed under Montreux Record. Earlier, you also had Chilika Lake listed under it, but that was removed after the health of the ecosystem in general of Chilika Lake that improved, so that was removed from here. So thereby, you have the Loktak Lake and the Kyoladev National Park. Where is Loktak Lake? Loktak Lake is in the northeastern state of Manipur, where you find the Kabul Lamjau. National Park. This is the photograph or the image of Loktak Lake that is there. Now in this lake, there is something which is very peculiar, which you don't find in other areas of the country. That is, here you will notice there are considerable amount of floating grasses or floating grass-like structures. These floating areas are what are referred to as fumdis, which make this wetland very special. Now, if there are floating grasses, so even the animals which exist in that area, they need to have certain characteristics. They need to be very light on their feet so that they do not sink. So that is why here you will find a very special kind of deer as well, which is referred to as the dancing deer or the Sangai deer. Again, an endangered species. So when I say or whenever I refer that always diversify from a main concept, this is what I actually mean. That from wetlands, from Loktak Lake, you can actually reach a species which is endangered and why it is endangered. Okay? Then other than that, you have the Keoladev National Park, which was earlier what was named as the Bharatpur Bird Sanctuary. That is what you have as Keoladev National Park. So these areas and only these two is what you will find under Montreux's record. Okay? Then, in India, 10 new Ramsar sites have been added recently, and that is why Ramsar Convention has again become very prominent in news. So, what you need to do is just go through the different areas. One is in Maharashtra, then you have 3 in Punjab, and remaining 6 you have in Uttar Pradesh. So these are the new areas which have been demarcated as the Ramsar sites, thereby increasing the total number of sites in India to 37. So just be aware of what the names are. No one expects you to remember all of them. Just be aware so that if you see it in the question paper, you have some cognitive memory of where you have seen it before. So you have Nandur Madhameshwar in Maharashtra, then you have different bird sanctuaries, all of them that you see in Uttar Pradesh. All of them are basically a kind of oxbow lakes, most of them. Oxbow lakes. Right? And they are, all of them are bird sanctuary, most of them are oxbow lakes. Now, on a related concept, oxbow lakes are formed in which stage of the river? They are generally formed in the mature or the old stage of river. Okay? So, remember and keep relating to the different subject. Now, the question, with reference to the Ramsar Convention, which of the statements is or are correct? First, it is a convention to ensure conservation of wetlands. True. Then, Montreux's record deals with the wetlands which are thriving and no longer need conservation efforts. This is as incorrect as it can be. Then, no Indian wetland site has been included in the Montreux's record. We just now saw about Loktak Lake and the Keoladev National Park. So, this is again incorrect. So, the answer will be 1 only. Okay? Then, Nandur Madhameshwar is seen in the news recently for which of the following reasons? So, first cultural site of Odisha to be included in the Prasad scheme? No. Then Asia's largest lift irrigation project was constructed? No. Where was it constructed? In the state of Telangana. So, again, no. It is Maharashtra's first Ramsar site. That is correct. Okay? So, that is the answer in this case. Then, with reference to the Chilika Lake, which of the following statements is or are correct? First, recently washed Parali One Island is a part of this lake. So, it is not, because this island was close to Lakshadweep. This island was close to Lakshadweep. So this is an incorrect statement. It is home to Irrawaddy dolphin. Again, very correct. The population of dolphins, Irrawaddy dolphins that you see in Chilika Lake is actually close to around 150 to 200, and there are considerable efforts made to conserve that species. So that is correct. Third is, it has been recently included under the Montreux record. Again, you have that as incorrect. So the answer will be A, that is 2 only. Okay. Then, with reference to the mangroves, which of the following statements is or are correct? First, mangroves are xerophytes which are adapted to harsh coastal conditions. Xerophytes. What are xerophytes? Xerophytes are those plants which grow in the desert areas. Right? Which grow in the desert areas to actually go through or adapt to different conditions of water scarcity that is observed in that part. Then, the state of Gujarat has the highest percentage of mangrove cover in India. So, this is highest percentage of mangrove cover in India. This is incorrect. Then the Indian Sundarban mangroves were accorded wetland of international importance status under the Ramsar Convention. So this is rather correct. So now the question, what do we have to select here? As I said, always pay keen attention to what is being asked. Here you are being asked what is incorrect. So the first is mentioning about xerophytes. Xerophytes are rather desertified plants. So this will be incorrect. So second is incorrect because West Bengal has the highest percentage. So 2 are incorrect. So the answer will be 1 and 2. Okay. Then after that we have a concept of floating treatment wetland. It is nothing but rather an artificial kind of wetland which is created in an aquatic ecosystem to support the ecosystem around it and also kind of filter the water around it and get rid of different kinds of pollutants in the water, thereby ensuring longevity of the aquatic ecosystem. Hereby, in case of floating treatment wetland, you see that there is use of different techniques, including many times the use of gunny bags, use of thermocol that is there, so that the plants are suspended in water. And here the actual property of hydroponics is used. Hydroponics is used. What is hydroponics? Hydroponics is the ability of a plant to grow over the water surface without requiring the soil for its root cover. Example, water hyacinth. That is what is hydroponics, and that is what is observed in the case of floating treatment wetlands or any floating wetland. Okay. Now, the question. With reference to floating treatment wetlands, consider the following statements. First, the driving principle behind these wetlands is hydroponics, whereby the plants, they do not require the soil. So, that is correct. Second, this requires building an artificial island unit with the help of bamboo, styrofoam and gunny bags. Again, correct. In order to support the plant, in order to keep the plant suspended in water. Then, Loktak Lake in Manipur is the largest floating treatment wetland in India. So, mind you, floating treatment wetlands are artificial in their very nature because they are constructed with the help of bamboo, styrofoam and gunny bags. So, Loktak Lake is natural because we saw there are fumris. So, this is an incorrect statement. In India, rather, you have the Neknampur Lake. Neknampur Lake near Hyderabad, in Hyderabad, which is actually the floating treatment wetland, which has been constructed as a model for floating treatment wetland, so to say. So here you have, what do we have to see? That which is the correct statement out of them. So you have A, that is 1 and 2 only, which will be the correct answer. Okay? Then after that, we come to the concept of cheetah reintroduction. Now, cheetah reintroduction has been in use for a considerable period and considerable duration of time now, whereby there have been numerous debates to and fro, right, even in the altar of the judiciary, that is even before the Supreme Court. There have been different stay orders which have been imposed by the court, and there have been various flip-flops regarding whether cheetah needs to be reintroduced in India or not. So here lies the very basic where many students often confuse themselves with. And that is the fact that cheetahs became extinct officially in India way back in 1952. And since then, cheetah population has not thrived in our country, or it has not been present in our country. Cheetah population grows and very particularly thrives in open forests and also in scrubland areas, where there are scrubs that are present, or open forest, or there is a clearing which is present. So there, cheetahs, they are a very important keystone species. When I refer to keystone species, means they themselves are responsible for maintaining the ecological balance of the species in that ecosystem. So when it comes to cheetah population around the world, then you generally come across two genres of cheetah, or two types of cheetah population. One is Asiatic cheetah, which is present in Iran, and the other is African cheetah, which you will find in different African countries, from Namibia to Nigeria. In different countries, you find it in certain numbers. Now, here sometimes a trick question is framed that can cheetahs be found in evergreen forest? So the immediate thought process is, yes, it can be found because this is a forested region and that will support the predator, top predator that is there. But the answer is no, because in such dense forest, cheetahs, which are the fastest land mammals that you will see, they do not get enough space for their habitat. So that is why I reiterate again, cheetahs are very important in open areas, in scrublands, also in open forests that are there, very close to desert ecosystem but slightly greener. Typically in India, what we refer to as deciduous, moist deciduous, dry deciduous. So dry deciduous and thorny forests are the areas where cheetah population actually thrives and survives. So in January this year, Supreme Court gave a ruling that African cheetahs can be reintroduced in our country in a region which is Kuno Palpur National Park. Kuno Palpur National Park has also been in news regarding the relocation of Asiatic lions, which did not eventually happen. So that is why, where is Kuno Palpur National Park? It is very close to the region of Morena in Madhya Pradesh. If you go to that location, it is considerably dry, very close to Rajasthan, and is a considerably drier area. So there, cheetah is supposed to be reintroduced. The process is on, the study is on. If it will be reintroduced, it will be there. Earlier, you also had another wildlife sanctuary, that is Naura Dehi Wildlife Sanctuary, which was being considered, but then it was put out of consideration due to various ecosystem and ecological balances which could come under threat. Okay? So, the question, with reference to the cheetah reintroduction program, which of the following statements is or are correct? First, under the program, Asian cheetahs will be reintroduced in India. No. Asian cheetahs are from, or they are present in Iran. There was a talk earlier on to introduce those cheetahs, but that could not materialize, and that is why African cheetahs are under the process of reintroduction. Then, Kuno Palpur in Madhya Pradesh is one of the protected areas found to be suitable for cheetah reintroduction. Absolutely correct. The cheetahs will be reintroduced under an ex situ process. So here, ex situ and in situ. Ex situ means somewhere where they were born and where they are actually residing, taking them from that place and bringing them to some place else. So in case of cheetahs, they are being brought from Africa to India. So it will be a kind of a ex situ conservation, whereby the further generation of cheetah growth and conservation can be in situ, but the first time it will be an ex situ process. So this is again correct, and the answer will be B, that is 2 and 3. Okay? Then subniveum. Again, subniveum is, or what is it? That is important. So subniveum is basically, if you can see from this figure, that is the ice habitat that is present for different species to thrive or to actually thrive in this area. So different species, when it starts snowing or when the ice cover starts falling in colder areas, they simply do not go underground. But rather, the ice, when it gets thick enough, it is able to trap heat within itself. And that ensures maintenance of habitat of these animals. Now, due to increased climate change and global warming, this subniveum ecosystem is disappearing, leading to a threatened lifestyle of many different organisms and the whole of the food chain in colder areas. So that is why subniveum has been in news, and you can expect a question regarding what is subniveum. As you can see here, it was reported that due to global warming, the species of subniveum climate are at high risk. Which of the following describes this? It can be as straightforward and as simple as that. You just need to know and be aware of what subniveum actually is. So here you will see that the climate between the bottom of the snow layer and the top of the frozen ground is what you say as subniveum climate, and hence D will be the answer for it. Okay? Then after that we come to the last topic, that is coral bleaching. So the coral reefs, they are actually one of the most diverse ecosystems all across the world, and they are specially present in coastal areas. But the thing here to note, every one of you must have studied coral reefs time and time again. But the things here that you have to notice that unlike the popular perception that coral reefs are present only in the warm waters, that is incorrect. You have to note they are also present in cold waters as well as in ocean basins or ocean beds sometimes. So they are present in those areas as well. So that is something you have to be aware of. Now, what is it that we refer to as coral bleaching? So the different colors that you see in the coral reef, these different colors are due to the kind of pigment that you have, which is secreted by the algae. And the algae, what is the name of the algae? It is zooxanthellae. So zooxanthellae is the algae which gives different colors to the corals. I'm talking about corals in warm waters now. So those corals, they get their color due to this pigment which is present in the algae. Now, when the conditions change, either due to increasing temperature of ocean water or due to increasing pollution, that like we saw yesterday in case of oil spill or in case of certain bacterial or fungal diseases, the coral polyps, they start eliminating these algae and these algae start dying. So thereby the corals, they simply turn white. And that is what is referred to as bleaching or coral bleaching. So coral bleaching is an example that you find of the changing global scenario or the worsening global environment around you. Okay? Now, if you talk about the globally threatened corals, then basically along all the coastal areas, you have corals which are being threatened every day due to rise in the surface temperature of seawater as well as due to increased marine pollution due to the process of eutrophication that we saw yesterday. So that is why globally there has been a program which has been launched, that is Glowing Gone. Remember this program name. This is a program which has been launched by UNEP in order to help conserve the corals. And this has been launched this year, which makes it very important from the preliminary perspective. Okay? So Glowing Gone is basically a program for the conservation of corals. Now, which of the following can trigger coral bleaching? First is fluctuation in ocean temperature, definitely. Change in marine salinity, definitely. If it becomes very or suddenly the salinity level changes, algae finds it very difficult to sustain itself. Then you have bacterial infections as well. So you have 1, 2 and 3. One thing to keep notice here is that corals are an example of a symbiotic relationship. That is, the algae benefits the polyps by giving it food. Polyps benefit the algae by giving it a platform where actually it can undertake photosynthesis and also giving it a surface which is rich in calcium carbonate. So it is a symbiotic relationship that is there. Then, with reference to coral reefs and ecosystems, consider the following statement. First, they always represent a symbiotic relationship between zooxanthellae and coral polyps. Just now we discussed that. It is correct. Then, it is the pigment of these coral polyps which exhibit the varied coloration pattern observed in sea and oceans. Again, correct. Then, these coral reefs are not only restricted to the tropical regions but also found as far as 60° north. Right. So, in fact, if you look at the second statement that it is the pigment of these coral polyps, sorry, it will be incorrect because it is the pigment of zooxanthellae which ends up imparting color to the coral polyps, not the coral polyps themselves. Then the third, these coral reefs are not only restricted to tropical regions but are also found in cold waters as far as 60° north. This is correct. Example, Rost Reef off the coast of Norway is an ideal example of such kind of coral reefs. So here you have to find the incorrect statement that is there, and in this case you will find that the second statement is rather incorrect. Okay? Then, recently CO2 eating E. coli was in news. Consider the following statements with respect to this bacteria. First, it is the only bacteria known for consuming carbon dioxide. This is incorrect because you have another kind of bacteria which is Clostridium, which is also known to consume carbon dioxide. Then, the bacteria started consuming carbon as genetic adaptation to high concentration of CO2. Again, this is correct. So, first is incorrect, second is correct. That will make B as the right answer. Okay? So, that shall be all for today's class. If you have understood and if you have gained something out of the class, please like the video, please subscribe the channel, and please hit the bell icon so that you are notified the next time we come out with a video and we come out with a practice module. Tomorrow, when we come back, Tomorrow we shall again be discussing certain issues regarding the conventions that we have across the globe, and then in the last class, that will be on 24th of September, we shall be discussing about the national parks that are there. And please feel free to comment regarding what you felt regarding the class, how beneficial or how useful it was for you. Okay, so that shall be all for today. Thank you, good night, and take care of yourself.